You should be honored to invest in a future billionaire, Layla, instead of clinging to your savings like some bitter librarian. My father, Harold, slammed his wineglass down, irritated that I dared interrupt their celebration over something as insignificant as a fraud alert. That alert says $14,999, I said, my phone trembling in my hand. I transferred that money 2 hours ago to cover your property taxes. You spent it on a bracelet. We spent it on potential, my mother, Diane, corrected me, beaming at my unemployed brother, Wesley. Wesley is proposing to a girl from the yacht club. He has to look successful. The IRS can wait. I looked at Wesley. He was grinning, twisting a diamond ring on his finger. A ring bought with every dollar I had saved. You stole my money, I whispered. We redistributed family funds, Harold sneered, stepping right into my space. If you had a life of your own, maybe you'd understand, but since you're just a loan officer, how about you sit this one out and let the real business minds do their work? Now get out, you're ruining the vibe. I didn't shout, I didn't beg. I stared at the three of them, laughing and pouring champagne over my financial ruin. I nodded once. Then I turned and walked out of the house without saying a word. I drove until my hands stopped shaking. I pulled my 12-year-old Toyota Corolla into a quiet pharmacy parking lot, killed the engine, and just sat there, listening to it tick as it cooled. It's a strange thing, realizing you've been the villain in your own life. Not because you were malicious, but because you were naive. I'm 30 years old. I'm a licensed debt advisor. I spend 60 hours a week calculating debt-to-income ratios, coaching strangers through bankruptcy, and teaching people how to identify financial traps. I'm trained to see a bad investment from a mile away. And yet, for 5 years, I poured everything into a bucket with no bottom. Let me break it down, because the math doesn't lie. The math is the only thing that makes sense to me now. $2,300. That was the monthly mortgage on my parents' outdated ranch home in Tallahassee. 5 years ago, my father, Harold, sat me down with glassy eyes and said his business was struggling. He said they were about to lose the house. He said, "Layla, we just need a little bridge, just until things pick up." I built them that bridge. Every first of the month, without fail, I wired $2,300 into their account. That's $27,600 a year. Over 5 years, that's $138,000. That money didn't come without sacrifice. I live in a 400-square-foot apartment with a wall bed. I meal prep the same $5 rice bowl every week. I haven't had a vacation since 2019. I drove that clunky Toyota while Wesley pulled into the driveway in a leased Tesla Model 3 with custom rims that Harold paid the insurance on. He needs to look the part, my dad would say when I questioned it. You have income, Layla. Wesley has vision. Vision. Wesley is 28. His vision is a graveyard of failed crypto projects and networking retreats in Lake Tahoe. I remember the bathroom leak. God, the bathroom. 2 years ago, my closest friend Chelsea got married in Greece. I spent 14 months saving to be there, to be her maid of honor. 2 weeks before my flight, Diane called me sobbing. Water damage, mold. The home inspector said they needed $9,000 or they'd be condemned. I canceled my ticket, sent them everything I had. I sat alone in my apartment and watched Chelsea's wedding in real time through Instagram stories, eating lentil soup from a plastic bowl. 3 weeks later, Wesley posted photos from his getaway to Palm Springs. Crypto Summit, he said. When I asked my mother how he managed that, she replied, "Oh, he found a deal on a flight. We just helped a little. The poor boy needed a reset. He's been so stressed." They took my best friend's wedding and turned it into his beach retreat. I glanced at my dashboard. The check engine light had been on for 8 months. I couldn't afford to fix it. I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't even human. I was infrastructure. I was the invisible ATM that ran on silence, the beam holding up the roof, the electricity keeping their luxury candles burning. But here's the fatal flaw in parasites. They think the host will never wake up. I wiped my face, looked at the fraud alert still glowing on my phone. $14,999. That wasn't just a number, that was escape, and they traded it for a shiny accessory for a man who's never paid for his own Wi-Fi. I took a deep breath. The sorrow was gone, so was the anger. What remained was cold, precise arithmetic, the kind I teach, the kind I trust. It was time to collect. You might be wondering why the ring was the final straw. After 5 years and over $130,000, why snap over one $15,000 swipe? It wasn't the money, it was the context, because I knew something they didn't know I knew. 1 week earlier, I'd been at their house for a barbecue. Harold asked me to help him print a return label because the printer wasn't working. I sifted through the mess on his desk and found what I wasn't meant to see. A yellow envelope labeled in bold pen, "Final Will Draft, Confidential." I shouldn't have peeked, but I did. I flipped past the funeral requests and landed on the assets. I expected a split. I would have accepted a 40-60, but instead I saw it. Wesley Theodore Harlow, primary and sole beneficiary of the residence at 78 Ravenwood Lane. My name? Nowhere. Not even a mention. I stared at the paper like it was written in fire. Harold walked in holding a beer. He saw the folder open on the desk. He didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He just shrugged like he was explaining why he bought different brand of coffee. Don't get dramatic, Layla. It's just practical. You've got a degree, a stable career. You're good. I paid for this house, I said. I am still paying for this house. That's incredibly generous of you, he replied, patting my arm like he was offering me a compliment. But Wesley needs a soft landing. He's a visionary. The world is cruel to visionaries. This ensures he always has a roof over his head. It's called equity, Layla. You of all people should appreciate that. He used a financial term to justify siphoning years of sacrifice from his daughter to prop up a man-child with a Pinterest startup. He genuinely believed that my responsibility was a burden and Wesley's instability was something sacred. That was the moment it snapped. I wasn't investing in my family's legacy, I was funding my own obsolescence. So when I saw that fraud alert, when I saw them laughing and toasting over a ring funded by my tax payment, I understood the truth. They didn't think they'd stolen $15,000. They thought they'd simply taken an advance on an asset they already believed belonged to Wesley. I sat in my car staring at the dashboard light blinking like a warning signal. No more tears. Tears are for daughters. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I reached behind my seat, pulled out my work laptop, tethered it to my phone's hotspot, and opened the secure system I use every day. A familiar blue-gray interface appeared. Asset Recovery Platform. I handle debt collection for a living. I know how debtors think. They believe they can wait it out, ignore the statements, pretend emotional ties will stall the reckoning. But I wasn't a collection agency. I was something worse. I was family. I pulled up the Florida property database. I pulled the deed. I ran the tax history. I did the numbers, and I realized I couldn't go after the $15K. It was a joint account. On paper, they had access. A small claims court would give me pennies and set fire to my entire past. I needed leverage. I needed to turn their entitlement into my evidence. I started a new file, titled it Project Ravenlock. My dad wanted to talk about equity? Let's talk about it. I closed the laptop, checked my reflection in the mirror. Gone were the puffy eyes. What stared back at me was still, composed, ice cold. I started the engine. I wasn't going home to sulk. I was going home to write a contract. 2 days later, I pulled into their driveway holding a white box of maple donuts and a red folder. When Diane opened the door, her face pinched in suspicion, but the donuts softened her instantly, like I'd brought an offering. "I knew you'd cool down," she said, stepping aside. "Wesley's with Savannah, Harold's watching the game." I found him in the den, reclined, holding a beer, golf on mute, didn't even look up. "Hope you're here to apologize," I said, setting the box and the folder on the coffee table. I did some digging, Dad, about the house transfer, about Wesley. Harold clicked off the remote. What about him? I ran a soft credit pull, not illegal, just insider knowledge. It's bad, Dad. He's got 3 cards at max and a repossession from that failed e-bike business. If you transfer the title to him, the moment that asset hits his name, his creditors will see it. They'll sue, put a lien on the property, force a sale. You won't have a house in 6 months. Harold paled. He didn't care about my drained savings, but threatened Wesley's handout, and suddenly I had his full attention. So what do? We protect him, I said, opening the folder. We build a firewall. I slid over a document, simple, clean, very official. A deed of trust, the same kind banks use every day. This is a friendly lien, I explained. Just says you owe me $120,000. It makes the property appear fully leveraged. On paper, this is a friendly lien, I explained. Just says you owe me $120,000. It makes the property appear fully leveraged. On paper, it's worthless. Creditors won't waste time. It's a shield, Dad. Keeps the house in the family. He squinted at the page. You want me to sign something saying I'm in debt to you? It's cosmetic, I said, pointing to Clause 4. 0 interest, no payments due as long as you or Mom live in the house. It's a dummy loan, just optics. I watched his mind spin. He didn't see legal language. He saw a trick, a loophole, a clever little scam that let him outwit the system. That's the thing with greedy people. You don't bait them with confrontation. You lure them with opportunity. He thought I was a pawn again, his loyal little enabler, always willing to play accountant for his golden boy. This helps Wesley? He asked. Makes him bulletproof, I promised. He grinned, oily and smug. Smart girl. I texted the notary waiting outside. Her name was Joy. She had no clue she was witnessing vengeance disguised as estate planning. Diane and Harold signed with dramatic flair, like they were sealing a business merger. They thought they were gaming the system. They never even glanced at the trigger clause, full balance due upon sale or title transfer. Joy notarized the documents, stamped them with a satisfying crunch. All set, she chirped. Thanks, Layla, Harold said as he walked me to the door. He didn't offer to repay the $15K, didn't say sorry, just grinned. We'll get it recorded. Wesley will be thrilled. I'll handle the recording, I said, clutching the folder. I'm heading downtown tomorrow anyway. Perfect. Save me the hassle. I drove around the corner and exhaled for the first time in 2 days. The next morning, I stood at the Leon County Recorder's office, paid the fee, watched the clerk stamp the documents and enter them into the public record. That shield they thought they built? It was actually the lock on their cage, and I held the only key. Then I waited. 3 months of silence passed. To them, it sounded like victory, like I'd crawled away to lick my wounds and would come back begging. To me, it sounded like timing, because 3 months is about how long it takes to push a rushed home sale through closing, and they were rushing. I had alerts on the property. I saw it listed, I saw the offer get accepted, I saw the title appointment land on the calendar. Tuesday afternoon, title office downtown, frosted glass walls, polished floor, leather chairs, quiet desperation. I arrived 20 minutes early in a slate blazer, one red folder resting on my lap. Then I saw them walk in like royalty. Diane in a butter yellow dress she probably couldn't afford, Harold with his watch flashing under the fluorescent lights, and Wesley in a suit half a size too small, shoulders pinched, smirking like he'd already made it to Silicon Valley. With them was a man I didn't recognize, maybe mid-60s, salt and pepper hair, tapping his watch like he had better places to be. The investor, I guessed, the cash buyer, Wesley's golden goose, ready to cash out the only asset they had to fund a business idea that probably lived on Canva and caffeine. They walked right past me, didn't even notice. I waited. 10 minutes crawled by. I pictured the conference room, papers sliding across polished wood, tight grins stretched across greedy faces, the anticipation of a fat check that would finally make Wesley a real entrepreneur. Then the door opened. The title officer, Miss Richardson, buttoned up, blunt, the kind of woman who wore silence like armor, stepped out. She spotted me, gave a nod. Miss Harlow, we're ready for you. I followed her down the hall. I could already hear Harold's booming voice from inside. Great deal. Tough to let it go, but we're simplifying. Miss Richardson opened the door. The turn turned to stone. 5 people sat around a table the color of wet mahogany. Harold, Diane, Wesley, the buyer, and a paralegal. 1 chair remained empty, the one at the head. Diane recovered first, annoyance blooming across her face like I was a barista who messed up her latte. "Layla, what on earth are you doing here?" she snapped. "We're in the middle of something important." "I know," I said, stepping in. "Go wait in the car," Harold ordered, waving his hand like he was swatting a gnat. "We'll deal with you later." Wesley chuckled. "Too late, sis. The money's already spent." I didn't respond to Wesley. I looked at Miss Richardson. She spoke with zero hesitation. "Actually, we can't proceed. There's a cloud on the title." The cash buyer finally looked up from his phone. "What kind of cloud?" "A lien," she said. "A secured deed of trust was recorded 3 months ago. Until the lien holder is satisfied, we cannot proceed, transfer, or release funds." Harold's face turned crimson. "That's not possible. This home is paid off. Who's the lien holder? I'll call them right now." "You don't need a phone, Dad." I pulled out the empty chair at the head of the table and sat down. I placed the red folder in front of me, crossed my hands, and met his eyes. "I'm not here as your daughter. I'm here as the lien holder." For a beat, no one moved. "Lien holder?" Harold finally said. "That was for the equity shield. You said it was just to protect Wesley's future from taxes." Miss Richardson cleared her throat. "Mr. Harold, whatever your understanding was, the documents signed and notarized 3 months ago are legally binding. It is a standard deed of trust securing a promissory note of $120,000, payable to Layla Harlow. It is recorded in Leon County and fully enforceable." She turned to the buyer. "Sir, this means the sale cannot close until the lien is resolved." Silence followed. Thick, hot, beautiful. "You lied," Wesley shot up, jabbing a finger across the table. "You said 0 interest." "It is 0 interest," I said, calmly, sliding a printed spreadsheet across the table. "Clause 4. No payments due while my parents reside here. But you're selling, Wesley. That triggers the acceleration clause. The balance is due immediately." Diane let out a sharp sob, the sound of someone watching their entitlement vanish. "How could you?" she wailed. "We're your family. You tricked us. You trapped us." "I didn't trap you," I said. "I asked you to sign an acknowledgement of the money I gave. You signed because you thought it would help Wesley cheat the system. You weren't tricked, Mom. You were just greedy." Harold slammed his fist on the table. "I'll sue you. I'll say you misrepresented the document." I didn't flinch. "The notary will testify you read and signed voluntarily, and now that you've said on record it was meant for tax fraud, I'm sure the state will be interested in that angle too." He froze. Then he turned to the buyer, desperation leaking out of every word. "Look, Mr. Langston, this is just a little misunderstanding. Give us 48 hours. We'll fix it." The buyer stood slowly, face like stone. He didn't even look at Harold. He looked at Wesley. "You said clean title. You said funding was ready. I don't deal with amateurs, and I don't deal with liars." "Wait," Wesley tried to grab his arm. "She's just my sister. I'll fix this. She'll listen to me." The man pulled his arm away like it burned. "My time costs more than your entire business idea. Delete my number." And he walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. That click was the sound of Wesley's future collapsing. Diane buried her face in her hands. Wesley stared at the wall like he was seeing his own obituary. Harold was panting like he'd run a mile in boots. "You ruined everything," he growled. "You crushed your brother's dream." I looked at them, really looked. Years ago, that would have gutted me. I would have scrambled to fix it just to hear "good girl" one more time. But now, I didn't feel rage. I felt nothing. They expected fire. I gave them frost. "You didn't destroy anything," I said. "I balanced the books." I stood and laid down the terms. "2 choices," I told Harold. "Pay me $120,000 today and I'll release the lien. Or live here for the rest of your life, but the house stays locked. You can't sell it, refinance it, borrow against it, or pass it on. It's a cage now, one you built yourself." I closed my folder. "And I have the only key." I didn't wait for a reply. I turned and walked out. The glass door sealed behind me, cutting off their noise like a switch flipped. Outside, the air felt sharper, my chest lighter. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the gravity of their debt dragging behind me. I sat in my car, opened my phone, blocked Harold, blocked Diane, blocked Wesley. 3 taps, 3 ghosts. That was 4 months ago. In a town like ours, people talk. I've heard enough. They're still in that house, because they can't leave. The lien won't let them sell. They can't borrow because the equity's locked. Harold picks up part-time work to keep the taxes paid. Diane's been auctioning off handbags and designer coats online. Wesley's back in his childhood room. His fiancée left after the deal collapsed. Turns out, visionary doesn't pay for wedding venues. Now the 3 of them are stuck together, broke, bitter, and blaming each other for the bars on their golden cage. Me? I used the recorded lien as collateral on a small loan, just enough to buy a cozy condo across town. No vaulted ceilings, no gated driveway, but it has a patio where I sip my coffee in perfect, undisturbed silence. No more Sunday guilt trips, no more birthday IOUs, no more being a walking wallet for people who only love you when it's convenient. Sometimes freedom costs the people who only loved you when it was free. Family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shares respect. Most people scroll past stories like this. The ones who subscribe are the ones trying to change something inside themselves. If this made you stop scrolling, subscribe to get more stories like this every day. And don't forget to comment below. Have you ever been the invisible ATM in your family? Tell me your story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it.